Okay. Hello, everybody. We are trying to go live. We are trying to connect on Instagram right now. And I am waiting for the streaming connection to happen on Insta. Oh, there it is. Okay. So now I'm pressing go live on Instagram and we'll see if it goes. I think it's live. Okay. We are live. We are live. Hello. Hello, everybody. So my name is Andi Kinsey. Welcome to the Kicking the Bucket live stream. My name is pronounced. I'm the creator and the host for today. I'm the creator of Kicking the Bucket. You pronounce my name Andi, like Gandhi, but without the G. We're very glad that you're here. So, what is Kicking the Bucket? Kicking the Bucket is a fiction podcast, and it is a dramedy. So, you're going to laugh and you're going to cry. It's immersive. It's like a TV show for your ears. And if you are listening to this live stream before July 2nd, 2025, it has not premiered yet. It's premiering after that on July 22nd, or July, did I just say July 22nd? Because I meant second.
You said second.
Second. Okay, good. Because I'm like, have I been saying 22nd? Okay, so it is premiering on July 2nd, 2025. And if you want to find out about the show, please go to our website. It is the hub of all things Kicking the Bucket. You can find the link to our show, our newsletter, socials, replays of these live streams like today. So speaking of the live stream, what is the point of these live streams? They're like kind of like bonus content for the series. And today we're going to go behind the scenes with one of our actors. So I'm very excited to welcome Kendra L. Franklin, who played Tamika on the series. Welcome, Kendra.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi. Good to see you again.
Yes. Okay. I know, because it's been a couple of weeks. It's been like, or has it been
a few months?
It was back in March, right? Or end of February. End of February. So
end of February. Yep.
So we're going to start off. I'm going to be asking you some questions, and then for anybody here, any of our viewers, hello, welcome viewers. Oh, look, we have viewers. So if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them into your question, depending on your streaming platform. It's the comments, the questions there, and we will get to those very soon. So Kendra, to get us started off, will you please let us know about you? Like, how did you get involved in acting? What got you started? Can you give us a little bit of your background?
Yeah, sure. I think I kind of started life in a little bit of an animated family, I would say. I don't think I knew that's what we were, because we were just always having fun and being silly and goofy, but artistically we had a lot of talent in our family. And so, I just, performed in that house and for people. And, my mom was a singer performer. My brother was an artist and a performer. Like, I didn't realize, but my mom did drama when she was young. My brother did drama, blah, blah, blah. Most typical Black girls who grew up in my age range, we all wanted to be Rudy from the Cosby Show. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. But I also studied music. So I just kind of went back and forth between the two when I was getting in that high school age of like, what am I going to do? So I was in band, I had a full scholarship to stay in music, but I also did like acting, UIL, and our show, like I got outstanding actress and I was torn. So by college, I just couldn't make up my mind. And ironically, I was also a biology major, so I was double majoring. I tried to triple, and they were like, girl, you're crazy. And I had to make a decision, and it was very tough. I didn't want to leave music, but I also didn't want to leave acting. But I couldn't manage all 3 degrees, so I dropped music.
What instrument did you play again?
I played clarinet. But I also sing. I dropped clarinet, and then I missed music, so I did dabble in guitar in college and started singing again. And then, but I got my BFA in acting and directing. So from there, graduated, moved to Austin, got an agent, dabbled in commercial work, did some more theater work. Luckily, got a couple spots here and there, moved to Atlanta, did some movies there. And COVID happened and stuff, life happened. I came back to Texas. So, and then I met you guys, eventually that all led me to meeting you guys, our lovely producer. I've known her because we're in the industry, and got me connected to you.
Yeah. Kendra's talking about Dana Wing Lau, our producer, so is also a voiceover actor as well. Um, now I'm curious. Did you feel the pressure or the stress being in a kind of a family that was mostly performers? Did you feel like they were always very supportive, or did you feel like you had to do better or be better because they were
Well,
so good?
well, not really. I think the talent was natural, but I think I'm the only one who professionally decided to go this way. Like, so my mom was like, she's always loved performing, and she just had this really great personality. Like, she could fill a room, like, people loved her. Um, but she said, you know, in her time growing up, she never had the encouragement to continue doing that. So she became a nurse. And my brother had a scholarship to continue his art, but, you know, we didn't grow up like rich. So in his mind, he's like, I need to be more practical. I don't want to be struggling doing what I love, and I'd rather do what I love on my own time. So he stopped acting after college, and he stopped painting and drawing. I think he just does it at his spare time. So, you know, he went the typical route. And here I am, the oddball going, I want to be an actor, you know. So that was shocking for them, not more of, yes, keep going, this and that. It was like, how are you going to pay your bills? You know, so that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what I got until they really realized, oh, she's serious. Like, she's serious. Like, she's really going to do this. When I left like a corporate job, and I was like, okay, this is what
Yeah.
she's going to do. I think
Yeah.
they worried. I think they were scared. As most parents are, right? They want to like make sure their kids are going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of what I dealt with more. So I didn't get the on board until I finally like left the state, and then they saw like, oh, she's doing well. I mean, my brother said, we always knew you were talented, but it just didn't make sense. It wasn't practical. You know what I mean? It was like, because we, as you know, this is a hard
Yeah.
business, so we don't get like a regular paycheck every week or every 2 weeks. So if you don't work, you don't get paid. You don't get paid, you can't pay your bills, you can't eat. You know, so that's what I kind of went through.
Yeah. I hear that. I was the third kid, three of four. So as the third kid, I think I got a little bit more leeway because they're like, oh, our oldest kid is a lawyer. Then we have a rocket science. They actually had two rocket scientists. And then there's Andy.
Right.
You got to that like extracurricular kid or, like the similar, all these different
Mhm,
revenue streams. You're like, oh, today I'm doing
mhm,
this, today I'm
mhm.
doing that. So have you, so was this doing this audio storytelling is a little bit different than being on stage or behind camera, or I mean in front of the camera. So have you done this before? Is this your first time to do audio storytelling?
Yes, yes, it is. It was my first time in, I mean, I've been on a podcast, but it's different than having a scripted story to tell. And like you said, it's being live, being in front of the camera. I mean, even behind the camera, it is different. So this was pretty exciting, which was one of the things that intrigued me when I heard from Dana, like, hey, I have this scripted. I was like, scripted podcast? Yeah, so I was like really, really intrigued. And it just made me go back to thinking of before we had TV, you know, we listened to stories on the radio.
Yeah, yeah, we did.
You know, you got your news, you got your storytelling, all that stuff on the radio. And I thought, how cool to have an opportunity to have this under my belt. And luckily, I got booked with a bunch of great people and had such a great time with everyone.
Yeah, it's funny how it is. It's kind of bringing us back to the basics, right? This is before television. I mean, even on stage, people would perform, but after way back when, there were no candles, you know,
Yeah.
light. So, it was just,
Mhm.
these stories that were told.
Mhm.
I love how Dana's in the chat and Dana keeps on adding, like, don't forget it's premiering on July 2nd. If you're in Austin, we're having listening clubs so you can come in person to hear it. Um, so what can you tell us what you found? Because I want to share too, like the differences that I found in doing an audio recording versus being on stage or on camera. What differences did you notice?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is we're not in front of anyone, so we don't have a live audience who's actually capable of seeing everything we're doing. They don't get to see our facial expressions. If you are a stage actor, you know, like being on stage, you feel the energy of your audience, no matter how it plays out. It can be a low key audience, it could be a hyper audience, you know, like they're really into it. You feel that energy and it like kind of feeds you, I think. I mean, for me and everyone I've talked to, I think we kind of notice that. Like we can see how people are feeling. If there's something juicy, you can see them like on the edge of their seats, like, you know, and it kind of like feel, especially like depending on who your character is. So when you're on this end of it, you have to try to tap into that moment and still bring it out. So even if they're only listening, they can feel it in your voice. Which I think is a task, right? Because it's easy to just read through the script when, you know, we're rehearsing or going through, which we didn't really do that either. Everything was so organic, and we were able to bring who we felt our characters were and have a real reaction to our scene partners, which was, I love. It felt like I'm a Meisner. I studied Meisner, so I'm also a Meisner actor, right? So it's like being real and authentic in the moment actually worked in this setting for me. So I feel like that's the difference. I mean, and I've been on set with film and I don't always get to rehearse either. So in real life, you're getting that real authenticity. But again, you got people, you have the cameras, you have, you know, everyone in front of you. So you can kind of tell if you hit or if you didn't. But it's just you in the booth and the mic and you're like, okay, I hope that came across. You know?
Did you feel so? I also see that our Kiara, who is our marketing manager, and another actor on the piece has jumped on the chat as well. Kendra says that you are amazing. So we all know, yes, you are amazing. Did you feel, in some ways, I felt like with these headphones on, when you're just hearing these voices, I felt like a more intimate connection with all of you. So I was, of course, in the other room, you know, with the headphones on, listening, and sometimes reading the opposite of you. But in some ways, I felt it was more intimate, and like I felt like this weird, like, super connection that is different on stage. Or on stage, you're still far, you know, on, you know, in front of the camera, you're separated by the camera, you know, like. So did you feel that as well, like that in some ways?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Because, you know, it's almost, especially when I'm, you know, in the room, Tamika and Dolores have their moments and we're having that intimacy. And of course, it helped me kind of go back to how I felt about even my own mother, my relationship with my own mother, which is different from theirs, but in similar in ways, right? So, and then you're on the other end, and if there was any notes, you jump in. It's almost as if someone's listening to your phone call conversation, right? And you're like, oh, wait, okay. But it also made it fun because I mean, I knew that there was a moment where like we may do another take, but then yeah, when you have the headphones on and it's just like this voice out of nowhere, you're like, oh, they tapped in, okay.
Yeah. Of course, this speaks to you and your acting abilities, but it felt to me, it was like, oh, they're being, because you and Mimi both had like some very instantaneous mother-daughter reactions. It felt like it was like, it was like,
yeah, I love working with Mimi. She was awesome.
Quite fun.
Yeah, and it just felt like, okay, this could work. I didn't feel with her that I had to like work to connect with her. So I think that also made it easy to be able to play her daughter as well. So that was really cool.
Especially, like you said, not getting to have many rehearsals and coming in.
And we hadn't met until we walked into the booth together, right? So
you have to create this instant connection with the person. It's really unfair. I wish we had, it's always the budget, right? I wonder how many of our viewers are actually in the industry as well. Or if any of our viewers have done audio storytelling, because it's hard. It's a different thing, but it is also subject to budget, time, and budget, as is everything. So I know that you were drawn to this piece because there were some things happening in your life. Do you feel comfortable sharing about why this piece was important to you?
Yeah, sure. I think at the time, I had just not too long ago buried my father, my biological father. So, in that moment, I had realized, I've lost both my biological parents. So, reading this story, which I think if it was during a time when I lost my mom, I don't think I would have been able to do it. But going through that experience with her and losing her in 2019, and then had a few years, and then now my dad died. I had a somewhat of a better understanding of what is to be expected. It doesn't mean that it doesn't that it's not like it's not necessarily easier, but
Mhm.
what I learned from planning my father's funeral and everything was and trying to get his understanding of what he wanted. We're just in two different generations, right? So they just don't want to talk about it, but it's important to talk about. I realize now that I'm older, we have to talk about these things. So when I read the script, I was like, oh, this is so important to talk about. And if I am able to have the opportunity to be a part of the project, I would love to because it's so relative to where I'm at right now. I mean, I think it had only been 2 months since I had like buried my dad, right? So that's why I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I can totally get this. And then you and I got to talk, and I was like, she gets it. So yeah, that's really what it was, going through that experience, like planning my dad's funeral, trying to get him back home to Texas. Like it's just a lot. And I think we just have such a hard time talking about these things, but we need to make it we need to normalize it, I think. Not just the fact, I mean, it's scary, right? Because we don't want to think about losing our loved ones or especially our parents or anything like that. But if we can, I think, get to a point where our kids are old enough where we can normalize, hey, we all know that we're not going to be here forever, but this is what I would like. This is what, can I talk about this? I don't know how much I can say and can't say. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Like, and I also think it's hard to think about our own mortality, but I think it would be helpful if we actually did that, right? Have an honest conversation with ourselves so that we can have that conversation with our children, putting them in the best position possible to deal with the loss, because now we're dealing with the fact that we're losing you, and now we got to scramble and figure out what's the best way to handle your passing and planning your service. Do you want a service? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Do you have life insurance? Do you have a will? Do you have like all those things become so overwhelming, so stressful, especially when they're not in order.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Because you are in the middle of that grief. For anybody who's just joining us now, this is the Kicking the Bucket live stream, kind of bonus behind the scenes conversation, and I'm talking to Kendra L. Franklin, who is one of the actors in Kicking the Bucket. So I found that it it's like, what do you want to admit to on, in the out there that everyone hears and is recorded forever. So I say that, as artists, we create the art because, that's helps us go through it. So I had not said to my parents, we need to have this conversation before the story was written. It's like almost in the act of writing the story, I was like, I'm too scared to say that we need to talk about this. So I'm just going to write a story so that maybe you can read the story and you'll get the hint, right? That we need to talk about it because, and it works both ways, sandwich generation kids who are now young adults and, our my parents who are older adults. And on one hand, you're thinking, okay, I want to deal with this or have these discussions because I don't want our kids to be left, like you were feeling with all of these things going on. But then that means confronting your own mortality, like you said, and perhaps you may be ready to do it, but perhaps the other people in the relationship are not ready for it. We're actually going to have a guest next week, Garrick Colwell from Kitchen Table Conversations, and all he deals with is that advanced care planning, those end-of-life conversations and decisions. And so I know I've done other pieces that were super, super close to my heart, and having the situation, the experience with your dad being so near to the, I don't know, somebody's walking in, we're on the live stream. So, like, there are going to be interruptions, right? And so having it being so close, did you ever feel, or maybe I should ask, like, what did you do in order to keep yourself safe? You know, because as an actor, sometimes some of this stuff is real, right? So what
Right.
did you do? Yeah.
Honestly, I think, okay, reading it, I did not allow myself to go all the way there.
Mm-hmm.
Not until I got to the booth. If you remember, we did a take and then you were like, hey, can I get you to do? And I was like, oh, okay. So in that moment, I think that helped me because it is so close to home. And then at the end, you and Mimi like had this huge triple hug, and it just allowed me to just, let go of that moment after we got through that scene, right? And so, because it was so real, because you came in, you were in tears, Mimi was in tears. I think Dana was like virtually going like this, you know what I mean? So but that's also, I think, because of my training in Meisner, right? Being able to put ourselves in an imaginary situation, it's just hard sometimes when you haven't been through it to get there. And I think because I have been through the experience, I knew how to get there, but keep myself, okay, don't relive the truth, but the feeling of the truth, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think that's what worked for me. So as I'm going through the script and I was studying my scenes, I'm like, okay, I know what's going to happen here. I know what's going to happen here. And then the fact that I hadn't worked with Mimi until that moment, it allowed us to be organic in the moment and let what really was happening to me come out. And then it's like, big hug it out. We all understand what just happened here. And it felt safe in that moment, right? We were just in that small little booth and it felt like it was just us. Yeah. Deep breath, walked away. And I was like, I could drive home and I'm okay. You know what I mean? So that's what worked for me.
Yeah. I see some of our viewers are also Meisner actors. So it's fascinating how it applies to you in so many situations. I had trouble when I was training, because long ago I trained as an actor. But sometimes I feel I'm glad that you found that the ability to kind of close it off, because sometimes I felt like we were taught, to react in the moment and always reacting. And when you turn that on, if you don't turn it off, you're super susceptible to not being able to create those boundaries. And so,
yeah. I mean, as an actor, there's so many different training techniques. I mean, in college, I studied Stanislavski, and then, there's the method acting, which I think is the most unsafe personally, because those, unfortunately, we've seen famous actors who go method, do these huge, deep, dark films, and then they can't come out, and then they commit, they unalive themselves or something like that. And it's just like, wow, okay, I can't do that. But it was a shift for me, especially training with my Meisner coach. And I remember in the beginning, she was like, okay, butterflies, happy moments, she's like, you got to learn how to pull yourself out. You're putting yourself in your real experience. And then I had to learn how to balance that. And luckily I understand it now. And it's helped me over the years.
Yeah. You're a teacher as well, right?
I am. Yeah.
So now you're passing it on. You're like, here, so you keep yourself safe in these spaces. So, so what do you hope that people take away from this fiction podcast? Like, why is fiction useful, important? Like, why not have not just done a documentary or something that talking to real people about real experiences? Where does fiction have a place in this world for this experience?
One, not everyone watches a documentary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People
Like, let's
find
go
them
entertain.
boring,
Yeah,
and it's like, yeah. And you know, I think over the years, you don't want something to always feel like the news, and a lot of people don't watch the news anymore. Like, you don't want to feel like you're being preached to all the time on what you're supposed to do with your life. You know what I mean? So I feel like this platform, being nonfiction, can sometimes be a gateway into bringing your the song,
I
bringing
just,
it.
yeah.
I feel like fiction can be a gateway into opening up about something that's like this, that can be heavy, into your own life. I feel like as artists, right, the reason why people connect to the shows and the series and the films, or even just a painting, is because they see themselves in the story, in the art. So then it allows you to go home and really think like, oh man, that was so good. You know, oh, she did this. Oh, I remember when I was that age, da 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 da. You know, it makes it relevant to you in that moment. And then it's like, oh wait, I probably should talk to my parents about this. Or the parent can look at it and be like, I probably should talk to my kids about this. I think it's just a good segue into, this is fiction, but it actually is relatable to our real life, and something that we can really take seriously. So I hope when people hear the story, that's what they'll really do. Take those moments to talk to their family members. And it's funny because, you know, as you're reading the story, and I'm thinking about, as kids, we always feel like our parents don't understand, like Will Smith, parents just don't understand. But it's kind of the opposite here, right? I think as our kids get older, we're at that age where we start taking care of our parents, and then we think we know better. Well, we think we know better when we're kids too, but but you know, you go through life and realize, oh, I get what my mom and my grandparents and everybody was telling me. So you want the best for your parents, but I still think we should still listen to them as
Yeah.
well, because in the end, just like we're like, it's my life, it's their life too. So I feel like they should have a say. We should really take time and have these hard conversations and really listen to everyone, right? Like, selfishly, we don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
But it's real life, and we just have to. So that's why I said, I feel like if we can get to a place where we can start normalizing those things. I mean, I remember I was talking to a cousin about it, and he was telling me that my aunt and uncle were like, nope. They sat us down and was like, this is where this is. This is what we're not. And I was like, okay, I can see that with that particular aunt and uncle, because they're, you know, they kind of got, for lack of better words, they got their stuff together. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're the generation after the boomers. So I think they're thinking about it a little bit. But I think boomers and before, we don't talk about this. Like, we don't talk about this, right? So my generation and younger, we're like, wait, what do you want us to do when XYZ happens? Oh, no, y'all figure it out. And it's so much weight and heaviness on us. And, you know, it's like, let's normalize what the inevitable will be, basically, I guess. Even if we're not ready, you know, because even when you're ready, you're not really ready. But if we can have that stuff lined up, it will just make it a little bit easier for your loved ones that you leave behind, you know? So
And that's
that's
a gift. Like, that's what you want them.
yeah, that's what I really want.
That burden on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not even think, because it has changed dramatically over the years, like what has
Mm-hmm.
to be done after a person passes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's become way more complex and complicated.
Way
I mean, I'm just thinking, like, you know, when we used to just go, okay, your fish died, so you know, flush it down the toilet or bury it out in the yard, you know, like it seemed so much simpler, you know, back then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But things have changed dramatically. Cool.
Yeah.
Kendra, my goodness, we like just blew through half an hour, and as you saw, like, I didn't notice until the very last 5 minutes that I wasn't changing them.
I know, it's okay.
Sorry about that. I'm just leaving you up there now, so we can all look at your beautiful thing. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share before we sign off?
I do have a question. I do want to ask, if you don't mind, what do you feel was your reasoning for writing this script? Like, what was it that was like, I need to get this story out?
So, it was actually a screenplay before it was adapted for the audio storytelling. And it was written during COVID. So we were dealing with the inaccessibility to both my parents who are close in San Antonio, so we had more access to them, but also in my husband's parents were off, in New York, and so we had this distance. Things were going on. We didn't feel like we could help. We couldn't do as much. So in that process, also my husband and I are really bad at turning moments that should be very serious into like cracking a joke, because that's how we deal with the grief, or the sadness, or the stress. And so we crack jokes. So he's always been saying, yeah, well, when I get to that point, he's like, I don't want to go through all that. Just take me out into the woods and let me die. So it was a blend of dealing with what was going on with our parents, thinking about us being in that situation, because we were also thinking about, how our kids would have to be dealing with us. So a combination of the two. And since I work with youth and Shakespeare, I know that you can't have tragedy without comedy. So it became, this is a very serious subject that we should be talking about, and we need to talk about it. And I can't talk about it yet. So I wrote a story about it. And then, rather than making it so, because so much of it is so heartbreaking that exists, so much of the entertainment is devastating. And I was like, we can't just go through this whole thing and have it be devastating. We've got to add the humor. So then it became this like more kind of humorous thing, a little bit ridiculous, but as we like to say with our tagline, this isn't a true story, but it could be, so that's kind of how it came about. I joke that I'm like, oh, I tried to plan this when I was writing it. You know how you think, oh, if I ever get an award or if I get interviews, they're going to ask me this question. Like, yeah, where did it come from? So it came from me, and it has a little bit of me. It has a little bit of all of these people in my lives, and kind of everyone kind of came into it in the end. And so that's how I got started. So thanks for asking that. Yeah.
I appreciate you writing it. Art imitates life, they say, or life imitates art, whatever. But I think it's art imitates life, right? Because we're writing usually from our own experience. We're able to perform from our own experience, and we're kind of like the mirrors of our audience, right? We're able to help them see themselves sometimes through certain characters. But I think it's a great story that you've written, even with the comedy in it, right? It helps us be able to absorb it a little bit better.
Yes. If we're laughing and crying at the same time, right?
Yes.
So let's see if I can figure out how to put this little ticker up. So we are next week, I said. So again, our website is All Things Kicking the Bucket. You can figure out how to follow the podcast. What's coming up next week? We have Garrick Colwell. That is from Kitchen Table Conversations, and that's on Thursday, the 29th at 10:30 a.m. So thank you, Kendra, again, so much for being here and having this conversation, and for being part of all of this.
Thank you for casting me and to be able to be a part of this.
It was a match made in heaven, right? And I'm so glad that Dana connected us and it worked out, and your schedule worked out. So thank you to our audience, our viewers who are here with us today. So we're going to sign off. I'm saying goodbye now.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please listen. July 2nd.
July 2nd. So, okay. So now we get that awkward thing where I'm going to end the live video on Instagram. So that's ending. And then I'm going to